Hello, dear viewer. Welcome back to our mental health program. In this program, we bring you information in order to raise awareness on mental health issues and also promote good mental health. Mental health is a critical part of our general well-being. As we have agreed in the past and today, there is no health without mental health. With you is Mrs. Afifu, Florida. I am a clinical psychologist partnering with Hope Channel Kenya to bring you this program. First, let us look at the highlights of our session last week. We realized that there is a growing concern on mental health situation of people in the country. This is because of the high rates of suicides that have been reported in the recent past. About 500 people were reported to have killed themselves in the 3 months to July 2021. This is more than the number that was reported last year throughout the year. We were able to define mental health as a state of complete well-being, mentally, socially, and physically, in which one is able to cope better with normal stresses of life, to work productively, and be a contributor to the community, and also able to realize and achieve their full potential. Also, we learned that holistic wellness is not possible without mental health. The mind has a powerful influence in all the dimensions of health, which are occupational health, mental health, physical health, social health, and also intellectual health. We also learned that our mental health affects our physical health and vice versa. The relationship between our mental health and our physical health is so intimate that when one is affected, then the other one sympathizes. Therefore, it is impossible to talk about health without mental health. Finally, we were able to look at a few ways on how we can promote mental health and how we can help others in our communities to know about their mental health. Today, we look at positive thinking as one of the very important tools of maintaining and promoting good mental health. The power of thought cannot be underestimated when it comes to mental health and its impact on overall health. To a greater extent, the behaviors we adopt, the emotions we experience, the illnesses we suffer from have their roots in thoughts and thinking. The athletes know this very well, and an athlete will tell you that it doesn't just take physical training to win or break a world record. It is more about the nourishing of the mind and thoughts. Recently, during the Olympics, we saw some of the very celebrated athletes take off from the competitions for the sake of their mental health. Let us take a moment and think about what is the origin of thoughts and how the thoughts influence us. Our thoughts originate from our situations, our past experiences, and our personalities. And our thoughts influence our behavior, our moods, and also our physical reactions. In other words, when we experience a situation, it is our thoughts that determines the kind of emotions that we will experience as a result of what we are going through. It is our thoughts that will determine how we experience the situation, the kind of meaning we assign to it, and also how we would react or respond to it. Everyone is in charge of their own thoughts. Of course, save for those who are probably suffering serious mental illnesses. We will look at this in the coming sessions. And because everyone has control of their thoughts, we are therefore able, each and every one of us, with more or less difficulties, to harbor, channel, elaborate, reduce, or reject our thoughts. Learning to have a positive thinking and positive emotions and to reject negative ones helps us to improve our state of mental health and also maintain a state of general wellness. Similar circumstances brings about different reactions due to the fact that people perceive and process information in very different ways. For example, when the rains come, one person gets upset and he thinks, the rains make me nervous. Umbrellas are a nuisance. The road is going to be muddy, or there's going to be traffic and people might slip, people might fall, there may be injuries. And the other person thinks, I love the smell of wet soil. The rains are good for us. It clears the air, it clears the dust. And also, plants and flowers are going to bloom because of the rains. One experiences the bitter side of the things, and the other experiences the sweetness of life. These attitudes will touch on how they experience that situation, how they respond, and the emotions that they would go through. It is therefore important to underline the fact that our thoughts influence our behavior, our feelings, and also our reactions to the issues of life. The difference of how we experience our situation is to a larger extent determined by how we think about them. In a common situation, one person may feel the need to reconcile, and the other one would be overwhelmed with the need to become aggressive. One would seek restitution, and the other one may decide to compromise and be involved in theft. In a situation of a difficult relationship, one may feel overwhelmed by love and seek ways to amend ways, to work on issues with the person they love, and the other person may choose to hate and probably walk away. Happiness comes as a result of how we think through our situations, and so does sadness. Through our thoughts, we may find general well-being, regardless of our situations, and of course, we may find general ill health dominating in our lives because of how our minds processes and perceives information. Therefore, it is important for us to learn and adopt the art of positive thinking for promotion of good mental health. Positive thinking is helpful to boost the immune system, aid recovery from illness and surgery, improve longevity. Positive thinking helps us to protect general health. It helps maintain optimal social interactions, increase social achievements, blocks anxiety, improve our self-esteem, and also positive thinking helps us to reduce pain and somatic symptoms. So then, how would you think positively? How can one learn to think positively? It is important to understand that we all have a general tendency to think negatively or positively. And this tendency depends to a greater extent on the continuous and automatic inner dialogue styles that takes place within ourselves. And this inner dialogue depends on our past experiences, our personality, and of course, how we experienced our difficult situations in the past. In order to eliminate negative thinking, in order to be able to substitute this negative thinking with the positive alternatives, it is absolutely necessary that we are able to understand how our inner dialogue takes place. Self-awareness is very important. We should be able to determine whether we always think positively or we always think pessimistically. And once we have understood why we think and how we converse inside of us, then we are more able to identify negative thoughts and substitute the negative thoughts with more positive alternatives. Let's say, for example, when you are exposed to danger, or when you are walking late at night to your house maybe, and you feel threatened, your mind may take you to a place where you experienced some difficulty, or where you are mugged, or may take you to think about what you've seen in the media about mugging and robbery and probably homicides. And when you dwell on these thoughts, then more often than not, you find yourself feeling anxious and fearful and feeling nervous, almost being disabled to walk. But on the other side, when you find yourself in a similar situation and you start thinking about how you have walked through the darkness before, and think about the security in your place and the fact that there are other people still walking the streets with you and have the hope that you're going to make it home well, you're able to relax, you are able to avoid anxiety, and this will show in how your body responds physically to that particular situation. Therefore, it is important for us to understand how our internal dialogue takes place and be able to identify negative thoughts and substitute them with more positive ones. How else can we think positively? Another way is to avoid irrational beliefs. Irrational beliefs, these are beliefs without logic, without reason, which cannot be substantiated, but they cause us unhappiness, they cause us psychological pain, they cause us nervousness, anxiety, and most of the time, they could lead us into depression. Positive thinking is enhanced by rational thinking. And therefore, it is important that each and every time when your mind dwells on an issue, you be able to assign the right meaning to what you're going through, be able to identify your emotions, and be able to project them or express them in a positive way. Also, we are called upon to extend positive thinking to all aspects of life. Here we talk about positive thinking about self. Most of the time, when we are down, when we are dealing with a depressive situation, we find ourselves dwelling much on self-defeating thoughts. We are supposed to extend positive thinking when we think about self. And how do we do that? When we think about ourselves, do you think positively about yourself? Depending on the situation that you're going through, what kind of thought does it invoke in you about yourself? It is important to avoid building our self-concept by comparing ourselves with the people in our environment. Most of the time, there is a temptation to compare ourselves with celebrities in the media, our friends, our colleagues at work or at school. And when we compare ourselves with them, we end up having a terrible or a bad concept of ourselves. Why is this so? It is always easy to relate with people and be able to understand very fast what they are good in. We never get to understand as fast what people are not good in. When we interact, we always express our good sides, our strengths, and we keep our weaknesses hidden, safe, and covered from the public. And so if you look at somebody, most often what you will see in them is their good side, their strengths, their achievements. And when you always compare yourselves to the bright sides of people, you will realize that you judge yourself unfairly. People are different. We are all abled differently. And so it is important that you build your self-concept based on your own attitudes, your own values, your own abilities, and your own potential. Accept your limitations and don't be sad about them. Instead, do something to improve them. Also, it's important to celebrate your abilities, celebrate your potentials. There is always a temptation to forget what we are good at and dwell on our weaknesses. So today, as we talk about positive thinking about self, I call upon each and every one of us to be able to celebrate our abilities and to be able to dwell more on those concepts of self that bring us joy and satisfaction. Of course, not forgetting to identify our limitations and do something about them. We need to be more positive when you think about the future. The future can be changed. Your attitude today affects tomorrow's events. Think with confidence about the future. If you anticipate a bad situation, then instead of being nervous or anxious about it, you can plan on how you can prevent it or even how you can mitigate it. Positive thinking about the past. The past cannot be changed. Regardless of how the past has been, accept that that is the past that you experienced. Accept even the unpleasant events that took place in your past. Most of the time, we become anxious about the past because there's a struggle between accepting the past and processing the emotions that came with it and blocking the past and trying to push it away from our mind. We accept the past, but we do not get obsessed with the disagreeable past. If there are difficulties in the past, then the best thing to do is to seek help in processing your past experiences that were difficult and the ones that you feel that are affecting you today and may an impediment to a successful and bright future, or maybe a barrier to your mental health. Remember the positive pasts and celebrate them, and change your attitude towards your difficult past. What about positive thinking about people and environment? We are exposed to dangers in our environment. We have some difficult relationships. We have fears about the risks that surround us in our environment. And when we concentrate on the fears and the risks and the difficulties we experience, then our mind dwells more on the negative aspects of thinking. And so how do we think positively about people and our environment? It is important to realize that not everything is perfect, but there are beautiful things and pleasant experience. As you understand, we have power and control over our thoughts, and therefore we can train our thoughts to dwell more on the pleasant experiences and on the beautiful things that happen around us. This doesn't mean that we should ignore concerns about the risks and the dangers that we are exposed in, but rather we should identify them and do something about them to prevent, to mitigate, and to respond in a way that is more productive. Do not grow suspicions about people. Depending on the experiences we have had in our relationships and with the people in our society, most of the time we experience distressful emotions because of our suspicions about people. If we are to suspect somebody, especially in our close circles, then we need to be factual and act on facts rather than just suspicion. When we trust more and interact more with trust, then we are more satisfied in our relationships, and we start learning to think more positively about people when we come about them. Also, It helps to understand problems that people go through. And much more, it helps when we are able to help people going through a difficult situation. When we engage with people to understand their problems and we get involved in trying to help them and make them comfortable, then we acquire positive attitudes about people. We understand that people around us are just like us. They go through problems, and these problems may make them behave in different ways. And when we come in to help them, we get a sense of satisfaction that builds on our self-concept. There is always a reason for every behavior. When somebody behaves unfair or unkind to you, when somebody treats you in a particular way, there is always a reason behind that behavior. But our minds sometimes may lead us to just attach meaning to why people have behaved without seeking to understand behavior. Now, positive thinking is teaching us to seek to understand behavior. Before we respond emotionally, before we respond physically, before even we respond in any way, then we should seek to understand what could have led this person to behave this way towards or against me. This understanding then enables us to get the right emotions and be able to express those emotions in a more positive and in a more productive manner. Hope is a critical factor in positive thinking. Filling our minds with spiritual thoughts and themes can be a safe way to attain mental peace. Meditation in sacred messages, in the words of God, in the promises of our loving God, brings us a form of peace. The Bible calls it a peace that is without understanding, a peace that is not circumstantial. And so one aspect of positive thinking is to have hope and to meditate on the promises of our loving God. Prayer and complete trust in God gives us grace to deal with our experiences, our past, our present, and also gives us hope for the future. When we have a hope, then we know that regardless of how the future looks, then you can positively think about it, believing that God has gone ahead of us and He has made our paths clear. I want to finish by sharing a quote from Margaret Lee. And she says, "Happiness is not a station you arrive at, but a manner of traveling." So thinking about mental health and how we can promote good state of mental health that would be effective even to our surrounding, that will be infectious even to our friends, our families, and the people we interact with, then we need to train our mind to choose happiness. Remember, happiness is not a destination we arrive at. It is a manner of traveling. And to travel with happiness, then we need to adopt positive thinking. We need to identify the kind of dialogues that go on within us. Be able to identify negative thoughts and substitute with positive alternatives. We need to extend positive thinking in all the aspects of life. Positive thinking about self, about the environment and people, about our past, and positive thinking about the future. Also, we need to do away with irrational thoughts. Be able to assign meaning to the thoughts that go on in our mind and respond appropriately and productively to them. As we come to a close, remember, mental health is as important as physical health, and we need to give much attention to our mental health as we do to our physical health. And one way to do that, a very powerful way to maintain and promote good mental health, is through positive thinking. And that's it for today, dear viewer. We look forward to meeting you next time, next place. Let's keep promoting good mental health.